Aloha and welcome to Waianae Now, brought to you by the concerned elders of Waianae. I'm Lori Nordlum. My guest today is Michael Kumuka'ohali. Michael is a Hawaiian cultural practitioner of Kumulipo, the creation chant, Lapa'au o ke kai, medicine of the sea, Kahu o iwi kupuna, the caretaker of ancestral remains, and Papa Kilohoku, the keeper of the star knowledge. Welcome, Michael.
Mahalo.
Thank you so much for being here.
Aloha.
Today what I'd like to discuss with you is about the Ho'opili project.
Yes.
Now, I know that in about 2009, H.R. Horton from Texas came to Hawaii, went before the Land Use Commission, requesting that they rezone 1,500 acres of prime agricultural land to build 11,750 homes. Now, that request was denied by the LUC because they lacked adequate timeline for the development. Is that correct?
True.
And then now the developer is back to the Land Use Commission, asking them again to rezone our prime agricultural land, again, 1,500 acres, to build Ho'opili project, which will be 11,750 homes. Now, Michael, what's wrong with that picture?
In its final environmental impact statement, they failed to do the proper Hawaiian cultural assessment. And they failed to define the Hawaiian cultural resource. Most people don't know what a Hawaiian cultural resource is. The soil, AB, the best in the world, that's a Hawaiian cultural resource made here in Hawaii. Our cultural practice is a Hawaiian cultural resource. When Horton accepted me as a native Hawaiian cultural practitioner and expert, they accepted me at the ocean in Oni'ula, saying, basically, where's the connectivity between our property and our final impact statement, environmental impact statement, and cultural assessment on you, the cultural practitioner? And basically I said, well, all the fresh water that's running underneath your property basically feeds my cultural practice. It brings nutrient-rich waters that cause the algae that we called limu to grow. That algae is the base food source for the fishery. It brings in shrimp, it brings in the invertebrates like the haukiuki and the opihi, your crab, your pipi'i. All of these things are what we call cultural resources. We use that for our food, for our health. You know that today Hawaiians are in the top of the line for strokes, heart attacks, diabetes, kidney failure. And we know that when Captain Cook in his journals came to Hawaii in March of 1778, 1.2 million healthy Hawaiian people. So what happened between 1778 and 2012? Here we have the most sustainable food source production land in the state being put up to be scraped away for a housing development that can go anywhere else. And sticking to the cultural practice, D.R. Horton never expected to listen to someone who is a konahikiist. Konahiki is what the ancient Hawaiian practice from the mountain to the mid-range land to the sea to the outside ocean are all one complex. You don't tear them apart and isolate them because the mountains catch the rain from the clouds that bring it surfacely through the rivers and streams, but also percolates through the lava rock and goes through what we call karst systems, underground caves that percolate through the pahoehoe lava tubes, as we see on the Big Island. They're built by Tutupele as she creates the islands. And they're the plumbing that go to the ocean where it brings this nutrient-rich water that mixes the vaivai, which we call our treasure, kanaka vaivai, and it goes into the ocean and becomes Auwai, when it hits the kai, the salt water. And that becomes our saltwater estuaries where the magic of life begins. And so a big part of our Hawaiian cultural resource to educate everyone is our fishery. And it's also a public trust for everyone, just not the Hawaiians exclusively. Now, the state constitution, Article 12, Section 7, protects this cultural resource and practice for the health of the Hawaiian people.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting, Michael, is that I had come across a book that was written by our former governor, George Ariyoshi, back in 2009, and it's called Hawaii, Past 50 Years and the Next 50 Years. It's a wonderful book to read, but I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to read a portion of it, and because this has a lot to do with the Land Use Commission, who Horton is trying to get to rezone for his project. And this is something that Governor Ariyoshi and our fathers, our forefathers of Hawaii, thought about when they thought about Hawaii's future. They wanted to make sure that it was going to stay pono and that the people will be benefited by it. Here's what he says. It's called the Hawaii Land Use Law. At the beginning of statehood, our system of land management was the envy of other governmental jurisdictions. We were on the leading edge of land use planning. Delegations particularly arrived to study our land use law. We imagined that as other governments came to see the negative effects of unplanned development, they would emulate us. As statehood and the jet airplane drove the booming 1960s and 1970s, it was fortunate for Hawaii that the 1959 land use law was in place. We owe the relative compactness of most urban development in Hawaii to our land use law, as well as the preservation of much of our agricultural lands, scenic vistas, forests, and watersheds. Despite our mistakes, our landscape is much more orderly than the sprawling development so often seen in the continental United States. Originally, the job of the land use commissioners was to serve the broad public interest over the long term. Governor Ariyoshi said, "When I first came into office, I appointed a representative of the League of Women Voters to the commission because the League had worked hard on understanding the land use decisions. He also appointed a young Hawaiian activist who spoke eloquently about the Hawaiian cultural viewpoint about the land. I felt her views," Governor Ariyoshi said, "needed to be represented. Combined with all we were doing in related areas, for example, in water management, the average annual rezoning of land to urban use was cut in half." Now today, the intent and functioning of the Land Use Commission and the Land Use Law has been extensively subverted. The commission membership prominently includes a realtor, a development lawyer, and a corporate lawyer. Members with large constituencies are similarly tied to development, such as electrical contractors and the Carpenters Union. The Commission's executive director previously headed the Land Use Research Foundation, a lobbying group for developers and large landowners. The decisions of the Land Use Commission to urbanize go a long way toward explaining why the number of construction workers in Hawaii has doubled in the past decade, and why the general public is increasingly disturbed about the congestion that results from overly rapid development. Contrary to the original idea of the land use law, the public is substantially shut out of the process. The Commission's quasi-judicial proceedings, intended to elicit thoughtful and well-informed testimony, have limited participation to only those with direct interest in the outcome. Attorneys examine, cross-examine, and redirect the examination of witnesses as if in a court of law. Developers seeking rezoning arrive with attorneys, consultants, and expert witnesses to pursue their agenda, but the public interest is not represented. I thought Governor Ariyoshi did a wonderful job in putting this chapter together. And what are your thoughts about this?
I believe that most people don't understand what's really going on, as the governor put, that this is a master plan for overdevelopment. And what I mean is, with the rail that comes through all of this development, has a hub-spoke setup approach. And what I mean is, it uses private development vis-a-vis developers to lay in the infrastructure for the city and the state while creating what is called tax map keys, TMKs. That's how the city and the state make money out of real property taxes. So this is a money-making adventure. And it cooks in First Hawaiian Bank, a consortium of a French company with the French maker of the train for the rail. And what you have is home loan mortgages that come into this. And the union, they're not making much over the rail that's coming in, but that hub-spoke approach of opening up a corridor for a plethora of development that is unchecked and basically will take away all the fresh water that we have, whereby the Water Commission basically states that Board of Water Supply will have to desalinate, go to desalinization, because the lens is literally going to be sucked out of the fresh water beneath the ground. And what we have here in the construction is a machine based with banking, loans, the unions, a 40-year project that is using the spine of the rail to have spokes and hubs to build massive development unchecked. And the people don't understand. They think that if I bring my good arguments, which is good, that will stop them. We have, like, the Friends of Makakilo with Dr. Keone Dudley, who did a great job. And then we have Senator Clayton He that came in for standing and basically were interveners in this process. But none of them could show foundation of standing of eminent harm. And what that is if the Land Use Commission wants to plug its ears and close its eyes to the great arguments that was made, because everything mattered. People came, whether you're for it or against it, whether you're part of the union or part of the general public. It was all good. The process was great. But in the end, people have to understand it goes to court. And to go to court, Friends of Makakilo do not show harm. They don't have anything that they lose there. Senator He doesn't have a farm there, doesn't lose land. He has nothing to lose, but our native Hawaiian cultural practice, the limu, our fishery, the fishes, the opihi, that's what we have to lose. How do we lose it? When they pull up all that water below the land at Ho'opili, they already have wells there. That water, you cut it off from running naturally to the ocean as it's done for millions of years, you'll kill my cultural practice. That's eminent harm. And as a cultural practitioner who is recognized by First Circuit Court, Judge Hifu in 2007, the Papipi Road drainage case with myself versus Haseko Eva Inc., what's the long-term cumulative effects of runoff from the streets with heavy metals, i.e. oil from the cars, on Mr. Lee's cultural practice? If you can't show Mr. Lee how you're going to harm the limu, then you have to have retention dams. Now, Ho'opili, in their final EIS, never told anything about its retention dams or its use for when it concretizes all that landmass that right now percolates water when the heavy rains come, percolates to the ground. What happens when you have concrete and asphalt and all that water is channelized and all of those drips of oil on the asphalt containing leads and heavy metals go into the ocean? What's their plan? They never put one thing in there. All they said is we have 3 drainage systems, 2 towards the east, which go to Pearl Harbor, which they never mention is prohibited of any more drain coming off because it is overpolluted there. So they have to use what is a drainage called Kalo'i Gulch, which they didn't want to talk about because I litigated that in a contested case in 2008 in February with Haseko, who put in a conditional use permit to break down the natural sand berms to allow more drainage to go into the ocean right off of the asphalt. And I said, no, you can't do it. You're going to destroy the limu, you're going to kill the fish, you're going to harm the ni'ihau shells that grow there that feed off the algae on the limu. And we won. OHA funded it, and we won. And their conditional use permit was canceled by the BLNR, the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Now it's coming back for a second bite at the apple. So the necessity of taking it to court is even higher than it was before.
Yeah. You know, Mike, when you were talking about that, I was thinking, we're talking about water. And I was thinking all the time I grew up in Nanakuli, we were told to be careful with the water. We have to be, you know, because we don't have much water. In fact, from what I understand, the name Nanakuli comes from, it's about the water. And it's really kind of like looking down to your knee because there were a lot of visitors, tourists and people that would come. And Hawaiians being so aloha and wanting to always feed people and give people, the most precious thing was water. And they could not give people water. And so they would look down. So they didn't have to acknowledge the people that was in front of them. Now, Horton is saying for 11,750 homes, there's plenty of water. No worry about water. And yet they're telling us, the maka'inana, don't use water, there's not enough water. So how is this play into the game? But here's a question I was going to ask you, Mike. Do you think that there is a strategic connection between the Ho'opili project and the city's elevated steel rail project?
Yes, it's a model. It's what we call a boundary zone. It's a boundary marker. It marks out where the spine of development is going to take place, because when you look at it, we basically have rail from the old days of the sugarcane, which basically would have cost $200 million instead of $5 billion. So you have to ask yourself, why would they tax us so much for something that is taken right out of the Chicago page of a 100-foot concrete pylon just slammed into the ground to have this elevated rail, when for $200 million we could have had, using the existing rail system that we have, which is already in place. Right. It doesn't dig up any EV, doesn't cause all of that problem. Why did they go through this corridor instead of using what we already have in place, which was far less expensive, far less intrusive, and we could have built transits around that area, bringing people back to their communities with shuttles. Right. That was an easy way to do it. No, they didn't do that. Why didn't they premise the rail on Epcot for beauty, like they do in France? Whenever they do anything in France, it's for aesthetics, beauty. We have mo'os. Why didn't this rail system look like the monorail in Florida for Epcot? Sneaking around, glass, very sleek, no big thick concrete pylons like in Chicago or New York, making this look like a big clunky, concretized eyesore, instead of this sleek, snaky mo'o that would fit into our mo'olelo of Hawaii. And not only everybody would like to see it, but ride on it, because the current rail that they have, only a third of the people have seats.
Right.
So if a third of the people can have seats and 2/3 are going to be made uncomfortable standing, the question is, who's going to ride this clunky, big, ugly thing that is taking $5 billion that doesn't have to be? It doesn't make any logical sense. What it is a master plan of development to have riding a tsunami of union workers to put them to work for the next 40 years at the expense of who? At the expense of our water. We're on an island. Do we want to turn it into a desert island? We're at the tipping point where we've taken too much of our resources. You know, when they built the harbor at Ihilani, They were warned that there is an outlet of fresh water there. And the developer Herbert Harita, decided not to listen to the old Hawaiian practitioners, broke the water for 3 years. Millions of gallons a day of water poured into the ocean. Is that proper management of our cultural resources? That's a Hawaiian cultural resource. And it was a waste of billions of gallons of water because they wouldn't listen, because they don't care, because they think we can do whatever we want and in the end we'll desalinate. And the Board of Water Supply says that's what's in the plan between 2020 and 2030. We're going to run out of water. Do you know what desalinization means? If you think you're being taxed now 70% more on what's currently existing, we're going to have to build a plant, boiled water, to take out the salt. And where are you going to put all that salt? All of that brine that comes out, where when you have a bucket of water, you have just a cup of fresh water from a big bucket. So with all of that salt, where's all of that salt going to go? Are we going to turn into an industry to find what to do with that salt? How is that water going to taste? And if there is an oil embargo from the Middle East, and we can't get oil because we're on an island, do we go thirsty? You try to boil water and steam it off and see how many little droplets you get to basically give your family in case of an emergency. This is ill-conceived, ill-warranted, and problematic at best.
Absolutely, Michael. And I just think, you know, Hawaii, our Hawaii, is a unique place in all the world. Absolutely in all the world. There are people all over the world that love Hawaii, that would love to be able to come to Hawaii. Many of them cannot, and they cannot afford it. But we need to realize how special our island is. We need to realize that we're just one dot in the ocean. Now, for someone, a foreigner or not from Hawaii, coming to Hawaii, trying to make their millions off our people, and going home to Texas or wherever they're from, Italy or wherever, laughing all the way to the bank while leaving our local people with the bag and the bills. And then leaving Hawaii without looking like Hawaii. We want our Hawaiianae to remain our Hawaiianae and not to look like Los Angeles or Seattle or New York. Because once that happens, like even the houses, if they're going to build 11,750 homes that all look like any other community on the mainland, that's not Hawaii. A lot of our homes now, you know, the old style homes that we have in Hawaii, that it makes you feel comfortable. You have kids playing in the yard, playing football on the street. With the new homes now, you don't see kids. You don't see people talking story on the porch or in the yard, or neighbors taking a cup of sugar over to their next door neighbor. Everything is becoming like the mainland, and that is not who we are. We are Hawaiians. We are local people. We are Hawaiian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Samoan, and we all get along. We all love Hawaii. We all have the aloha spirit, and we want that to stay. And we do not want people from outside of Hawaii coming here, changing our entire lifestyle and our aloha so that they can go home with their pockets full of money.
It comes down to the lack of appreciation of what Hawaii is all about. From the beginning, they have never seen the value of what has organically, endemically evolved here. Look at the pili grass. Our pili grass was used in thatched houses for thousands of years here in Hawaii. And look what they've done. On the roadsides, they've brought in mainland invasive species, and they have to water them. What a waste of water. When we have pili grass that can grow year-round without the water, it'll live off of whatever rainfall it gets. That's how it evolved here for millions of years. We have our Opai Ula that has been obliterated out in Ewa because they did the scorched earth mentality of just wiping out all the natural cultural features, seeing no value whatsoever in them. They never took the time to learn about what is important and what is so special about makes Hawaii so special. We see the marketing in Waikiki of a laissez-aller Las Vegas review approach. What happened to Hawaiian music? What happened to Hawaiian culture? It's been obliterated. And they don't see the value of Hawaii. What they want to make it is into some kind of enclave in California or in Tuscany. But this is not Tuscany. This is not California. We evolved in an island in the middle of a desert, which is the ocean. And in that evolution, we have birds and flora and fauna found nowhere else in the world. And yet, there is no attention paid to what makes Hawaii so special. Why people come here. In fact, when I went to Halemaumau 2 years ago and did a chant, I was literally arrested for doing my Hawaiian cultural practice and said, we want you out of sight, out of mind. The cultural approach is out of sight, out of mind. When in 2001 I went to Maui in the Makena Prince, and I saw on their TV, they said, oh, you, the visitor, are the native. And local people are a mixed bag.
What?
So the recharacterization of what Hawaii is let's erase what is, and let's put what we say is. It's this constant reinventing Hawaii as we see it. We're the gods, starting with Captain Cook. He's Lono. I'm a god, you're a god, he's a god, she's a god. We've seen this used car salesman approach to Hawaii. Rewall came in and said, I'm a this and a that. We see all these people coming in trying to reclassify what our culture is, what our value sets are, without even knowing what the principles are, not even seeing they have any value or should be researched or asked. In Ho'opili, I'm the only recognized cultural descendant ever recognized by the state Historical Preservation's division called SHPTI and the Oahu Island Burial Council. When Horton did its final EIS and its cultural assessment, it didn't bother to talk to me, which is unreal. It's that not important, you know. So we found that it was our place to step up and to put some skin on the table and says, no, we will not allow you to characterize or reinvent what we are just because you think you can say so. They run by 3 rules. If I can, I will. Pick and choose and what's in it for me. That's not enough for us in Hawaii. We have a stake here. We're stakeholders in this. Our families for generations have lived here. This is not an investment for us. This is not a timeshare for us. This is our world. You're coming in to destroy our world. The limu is a part of my world. When I was trained as 4 years old from my grandfather, Kino Valentine Guerrero, and my little legs were so small, I fell to the reef and got all cut up, all bust up at the beach. And he would chew the limu kala and slap it on there to show me the first usage of healing of limu. My first lesson, 101 as a kahuna of the ocean. And when I went into his refrigerator, what did I find? Stinky palo. Oh, I couldn't stand the smell of that. Limu kohu, opihi, and poi, and onions. Okay, always the staple there. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to take away my world. My world. And it's the world of many Hawaiians. And you're going to recharacterize it and tell us what our world is. There's a white Hawaiian rainbow that Kamehameha, when he was born, came. The Haulis from outside say, oh, that was Halley's Comet. They're going to tell us that this white rainbow of our family, of my Kamehameha family, that white rainbow is, no, it's Halley's Comet. Well, why would you say that? Were you there when Grandpa was born in 1740? That Halley's Comet, by the way, came in 1758. And in all the documents, it shows that Kamehameha was a teenager when he met Alapai Nui. Alapai Nui died in 1852. So how could Kamehameha been born during the time of Halley's Comet when he was a teenager in 1852? It's pretty hard to jump back in your mother's womb and do it all over again. But it's that part of, if we can, we will, because Hawaiians are so laid back. They don't challenge us when we start making up stuff. And they do it all the time. And Ho'opili is a part of it. To take the cultural landscape and wreck our world is not enough for us, and it is not acceptable.
That's wonderful, and that is so true, Mike. Everything that you said is so true, and I think our concern right now is that we're seeing our Hawaii change right in the front of our eyes, and it hurts us. We don't want it changed. It's not changed by us. It's changed by outsiders. And you remember, many years ago, maybe 100 years ago, where the same thing was happening. Yeah. We ended up having an overthrow. Right. We ended up having our lands taken away because they're the people from outside wanting what we have. And so they thought, I want what you have, but I don't want to pay for anything that you have, but I want it. Yeah. And the Hawaiians were flabbergasted. Yeah. They held a gun to our ali'i's head to have that land. Then, to this day, they have not paid 1 cent. I remember back in 1973 being a board of directors for the Aboriginal lands of Hawaiian ancestry called the Aloha Association, founded by Louisa Rice. And we went to Washington, D.C. to file our first reparations bill with Congress. So, and it was a wonderful experience. But I tell you, that was the first thing. We talked to Senator Dan Inouye, Patsy Mink, Sparky Matsunaga, and Hiram Fong. Wonderful people. But I remember what Senator Daniel Inouye said to us. Before you get any reparations, before you get anything back, all you Hawaiians, all of you have to agree 100%. And we looked at each other, we said, what? What group, what entity, what race can agree 100%? We all have our own thoughts, but it's like until you agree 100%, nothing will happen.
Well, in the Western lens of looking at greed and what's in for me and confrontation, it is very clear with our Hawaiian lens of ho'oponopono, konahiki, of resting the land and utilizing it based on nature so you increase the opportunity of abundance without collapsing the source. This is a way to focus the attention away from the stealing of the land. Because under their own laws, fraud, you can, in land court, turn over anything when you can show the fraud. They have no treaty of annexation. They have no right by their own constitution to take this land, which they parcel out all the time, giving it to people that don't belong to people, because Grandpa Kamehameha III ceded his power, created the Great Mahele from his power. No chiefs, no council. And he did what is called allodial land claims. Allodial, higher than freehold or fee simple. And what he did was he took his power and made Hawaiians kings of their own land, that not even he could take away that right from them when the Mahele came. That is what has saved us from the United States coming here and claiming it has land patents here, because it doesn't. The seed and kernel of international law of how Grandpa set up the allodial land claims are still protecting Hawaiians together in perpetuity, forever. Because no matter if they sell the land, their family has the rights, the gathering rights, for their health purposes and not commercial purposes, to gather bamboo, medicine, or whatever it is, feathers, whatever it is, for their Hawaiian native cultural religious practices, which Article 12, Section 7 of the state constitution guarantees for us.
Yes, absolutely, Michael. And if we can back up a little bit, at the previous Land Use Commission hearing, you, Governor John Waihe'e, Governor Ben Cayetano, and Senator Clayton He all testified against the Ho'opili project. Interestingly enough, our own governor, our own present governor, Abercrombie, voted for, or is in approval for the Ho'opili project. Now, and then, isn't it true that when Governor Abercrombie was running for office, he was against the rail, and now all of a sudden he's huli over, and now he's for the rail, and for Ho'opili. It's kind of like, what are you doing?
Governor Abercrombie has turned into Dick Cheney. Here is a person who supposedly fought against Vietnam in the 60s, and now is fighting against Hawaiian rights because he knows he's a one-term governor. He apologizes to our Hawaiian civic clubs, but keeps on taking away Hawaiian rights and trying to move environmental rights for drill baby drill. He sounds like a Dick Cheney lookalike to me. He's morphed into Dick Cheney because he doesn't believe in the Constitution, First Amendment rights, where not even Linda Lingle put a safety zone around when the super ferry came for the people who protested in the water in Kauai and Maui. She didn't put a safety zone. She was a Republican governor, but I guess the Democrats are morphing into Dick Cheney and try to rule by decree, suspending the natural safeguards for our environment, for the protection of men, women, and children and pregnant women, because they want money instead of what is the safety net for our people. Because on Molokai, this governor put in a security zone that costs $1.5 million to keep the Hawaiian residents, which Molokai is primarily Hawaiian people, who are economically depressed because of these policies that don't allow them to open up their local ia, their fish ponds, to culturally live the way they did before the coming of Captain Cook, when they were healthy and could thrive in their cultural practice by raising their own fishes, and whatever is left over, selling it to Japan, Korea, China, or Canada, making money. This state puts 19 agencies and to block building or rebuilding one wall of a local ia on Molokai. Why do they want to keep the Hawaiians poor? Because if they're poor, they need welfare. You can control them, because this whole thing is who's in control. Well, the Dick Cheney approach, which Governor Abercrombie espouses, by his action, not his apology, shows clearly that the Benito Mussolini approach of ruling by decree is his greatest hero, because in the end, we don't judge you, Governor, but what your empty words are, but what your track record is, especially is dismal in this last session of these bills to take away all our rights to drill baby drill, take off this rule, take off that protection, take off this environmental protection, because I say so. If I can, I will pick and choose, and what's in it for me seems to be where he's coming from in the Dick Cheney approach. You know, he learned something when he went to Washington, and he must have emulized and looked up to Dick Cheney as this man took away the rights for people under the Patriot Act. I mean, this is being a patriot, to take away rights. I mean, didn't we do that in World War II by interning innocent Japanese citizens? This is what we're going to look at for Hawaiians, because now there's a security zone around Molokai, Hawaiian citizens that don't want luxury liners coming into their community, and they're trying to use the First Amendment rights to stand up, to voice their concern, and they're being shut down by Benito Mussolini, who, by the way, wanted to crown himself in the gazebo where King David Kalakaua was crowned. That was a message. I'm the king, and I will rule by decree. And so he sent out to the Hawaiian people what his intention was. I'm the new Dick Cheney. I'm the new Benito Mussolini, and I will sign and rule by decree. Where was his first staff? Gone. His second staff. It seems that he has a hard time keeping his staff, because it seems that they have a hard time keeping up with where the governor's mouth is coming from. It is all over the map, but what comes out is apologies to the Hawaiian people in the civic clubs, but what comes out is destruction of Hawaiian rights and shutdown.
Yes.
That's what his record is all about.
Yes, and I think that was emphasized on a previous interview I had with Korra Snakin Berg and Kanoho Helm. And they basically said the same thing about the governor, that he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. When he's on Molokai with a small group, he's promising them one thing. When he comes home to Honolulu, he's promising Hiko and all the developers another thing. And they're just asking him to be honest and open and to leave their island alone. They have a very good lifestyle. They have the lifestyle of the way we used to live 100 years ago. And they still do. They still get their food from the ocean. They still pick their limu, hauki uke vana, get their Hawaiian salt, make their own poi. They are good, very good guardians of their aina. And to have our governor go over there and want to take all these things away and bring in this wind thing and destroy their reefs, so that they can have a tunnel under the ocean all the way to Oahu to supply electricity to the people of Oahu, not to the people of Molokai or Lanai. It really does come down to something
one
very.
thing. It comes down to theft.
Yes.
When you steal a kingdom away from a duly elected monarch and a constitutional monarchy, when in 1893 what was left was Hawaiian populace that was 96% literate in English and Hawaiian, hundreds of Hawaiian newspapers, no homelessness. Then in 1900 comes the Organic Act and shuts down Hawaiian language, Hawaiian cultural values, everything that is Hawaiian. That tells you where the United States came from. This is a land grab. This is drill, baby, drill. This is steal as much as you want. It's open season. Open the doors. Let the vultures come in and do as much harm as you can, because guess what? Nobody cares. Nobody stands up. And we have to stop that. We have to step up. We have to make our voices heard. And we have to come out, because it all matters. So I'm asking everybody out there to listen and to be a part of what we're all about today.
Wonderful talk. I know we've kind of talked about Ho'opili, we've talked about the rail, we've talked about, it all comes down to, Mike, our culture, our people, the whole purpose of Hawaii. It started with the native Hawaiians. We built this culture. People all over the world want to come here because of the aloha spirit that they experience when they're here. When the aloha spirit benefits big business, they love it. But when it doesn't, they want to get rid of it and have their own, the whole sense of values change overnight. And because if they're not making money, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And our people are not for just making money. It's about values. It's about living your Hawaiian values, and that is so, so important to us. So with what you do, Mike, it's all values. You're going to Maui, and I'm hoping we'll have another interview about your experience on Maui. It's spectacular. And
we're in the process right now, Lori, of training and teaching people how to do native Hawaiian cultural assessments. And what that is with the knowledge that was imparted by my grandfather and my aunties and uncles to me, I'm going out and reaching beyond Oahu to different places on Maui and on the Big Island to teach people how to stand up for their ahupua, their ili, their moku, so that they can show foundation of standing of imminent harm when these developments want to recreate the Hawaiian cultural wheel of our existence and try to paint a picture that doesn't exist for that Western lens of greed and lust and confrontation. When it's separate from our Hawaiian lens, we have to stand up. We have to be smart, and we have to do it right. We have to let the message be the messenger, not us be the message. And what I mean to say is we have to know the law. We have to know how to use the rights, and we have many rights. Article 12, Section 7, the Clean Water Act. We have rights within OHA, and that's another sore point for me, is that what we have with OHA, the people in this election year of 2012 in November must send OHA a message that you're not doing enough for our cultural rights. Under Article 12, Section 7, basically says that we will not overregulate or destroy Hawaiian religious or cultural gathering rights or practice. But Article 12, Section 6 created the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to protect Article 12, Section 7 and 8. The question is, have them. Ayamahea o OHA. Where is OHA? You know, as a cultural practitioner, I'm very thankful to OHA. OHA helped me out in my Papipi Road case and Kolo'i Gulch case. But then I had to do it alone in last year in July 2011 for the shrinkage of the Eva Marina. Eva Marina was the $1.4 million marina that was going to blast through my family Ivikupuna. And as kahu of the Maweke Lakona line and registered with SHPD, the State Historic Preservation Council and the Oahu Island Burial Council, I said, you can't do that. I'm not going to let you do that. And I had to be my own lawyer. OHA wouldn't fund it. Native Legal Corp, which is funded by OHA, would not help me. And so I had to be my own attorney, put in 300 exhibits. And what happened? Is there a marina today? No, it's a fish pond. But how are our Hawaiian people supposed to step it up and put some skin in the table when OHA's given a $10 million budget? And what do they do with that $10 million budget? Do they turn around and do their prime directive, which is to fight for Native Hawaiian cultural practices and religious practices, water rights, iwi-kupuna and rail, the issue with our religious cultural practice, Hank Fergestrom, Temple of Lono, practitioner in South Kona dealing with Haleo Keawe, with the federal government. Ayamahea o OHA. Where is OHA? Why is OHA making it very difficult for regular people? And Native Hawaiian Legal Corp is not helping out. The beneficiary is getting shafted. OHA was created to protect the beneficiary. Okay, where is that protection? It is very difficult for a person to step up and to get help. Why is 99% of the budget going to either the Royal Commission, Malama loans, grants, or now the Kaka'aku property for development as a money-making project? That's not what the Constitution of the state of Hawaii, the highest law of this land, mandated for the existence of OHA. You, as the people, have the right to demand, because they're subordinate to the beneficiary. You are their boss, not the other way around. They don't sit as kings and queens glaring you at the table and saying, don't dictate to me. You're there to tell what your needs are according to Article 12, Section 6, 7, and 8. If they fail to do it, you have the right to sue. You have the right to sue. And you should. You should stand up and stand up for your culture. And I'm trying to show you how it's being done. I'm trying to go to different islands and say, you can do it. Those rights are there. One of my fears is that if we exercise those rights and prevail and are successful, the pushback or the backlash is in 2020. They'll want to have a constitutional convention and rip that out. Why? Drill, baby, drill. What do we see on Kauai? The tax map keys for Kauai in all the multi-million-dollar homes there have driven our local people away because their properties now go up from $60,000 in the 60s to millions of dollars. We saw that for beachfront property in Waimanalo when I was a boy in 1960, playing on the beach as a little kid. That property was worth $60,000. It's worth $15 million today. How do you pay taxes on $15 million beachfront property? Do you know that in Olawalo, the city there for the county of Maui want to move the highway towards the mountain so developers can move in, so the oceanside properties tax map key it for multi-million dollars of property for TMK's tax map keys to bring in multi-million dollars for real property taxes for Maui. They did it in Wailea. What happened to Wailea? Where are the local people in Wailea? Billionaires and millionaires. Go to the Big Island in South Kona. billionaires and millionaires. What happened to our local people? How can you afford to live in Hawaii? Remember Queen Liliuokalani, 1893, Hawaiian people, 96% literacy in Hawaiian and English, no homelessness, no poverty. Where are we today? This great American apple pie, how do we fit into this slice? And with this great debt bubble that what's happening with the buying and selling of euro debts that are going on, what's going to happen when that bubble breaks? Are we prepared to live without a paycheck? Or are you going to be very close to your tutu who happens to own kuleana land with the stream and the lo'i and chickens and pigs, and she can always feed herself with the bananas and her own garden? Are you going to have to move in with tutu when everything goes bust in January 2016 because the basic lying, stealing Western situation of saying we can print more money with no value to it to buy useless euros is going to sustain the truth? It's not. It's going to break. And if we don't wake up now, living on an island, we're at the tipping point. If we don't take care of things, it's going to be a desert island.
That's right, Michael. That's right. And you know, with Ho'opili and this 11,750 homes, I'm thinking, can any of our local people afford those 700 those homes? I mean, right now, even with Hawaiian Homes in Kapolei, the prices are exorbitant. I thought Hawaiian Homes was supposed to have homes that the Hawaiian people can afford. They're supposed to get back on the land. They're making it very difficult.
Well, a lot of people don't understand what the Hawaiian Homestead Act was set up for. It wasn't a gimme back for stealing land. It was a way to take away your rights for your allodial land claims. You see, kuleana lands for Hawaiians, all Hawaiians trace back their genealogy, which is your weapon. You'll find out you have allodial lands and rights that have never been given up. But when you go through the process of going through Hawaiian Homes, most people don't read the fine print that they have to give up those rights freely to get the scrub lands that were set aside. That was to take away Hawaiian rights, not to give you a prize. And by the way, under the Hawaiian Homestead Act Commission, they're not supposed to charge you for the house, for a building, for anything. You were supposed to get land, period. Not have to pay for infrastructure or whatever. That's not part of Hawaiian Homes. Go back and read it. You'll educate yourself that that's not part of the deal where you have to pay money up front or help the next person coming up. It doesn't say that in the Hawaiian Homelands Act. It's not there. Nor does it say that Hawaiian Homes can take that land and build shopping centers like it wants to do in Ewa and use Kalo'i Gulch. It doesn't say. It says it's mandated to put Hawaiians and farmers back on the land, not to make money. In 2011, OHA and Hawaiian Homes had a joint board of trustees meeting. And I went there and I said, don't lose your way from your original stated mandate of why you were created. Because now you guys are all about money. Mm-hmm. You're not about the people, mm-hmm, or the people's rights or the people's welfare or good or health. You have lost your way. Mm-hmm. And this is something that you cannot allow to exist in this election year. You have to, in Waianae, Maili, Nanakuli, Waimanalo, stand up, and on the other neighbor islands, and put some skin in the table by voting, registering, making your voice heard. This is what's important. At any time, what people don't realize is like the Arab Spring, Hawaiians are lulled into a feeling of comfort under the U.S. apple pie system, that you get a slice out of it. But what slice do you really get? Hawaiians really own all the land. Theft has taken place and fraud. And under their own laws, there's no statute of limitations. It all can come back to you. Fee simple or freehold was given by my grandfather to haulis, non-Hawaiians, because at any time the kingdom could take fee simple lands back, okay? Because there's no treaty of annexation, because the Constitution of the United States cannot recognize the transfer of land, all these land deals are frauds. This executive order in World War II, taking all this land in Barbers Point, the Navy, it doesn't belong to them. At any time, What Hawaiians don't realize, what's in place is a verbal agreement. Hawaiians are making verbal agreements day to day with a U.S. occupying force like in Iraq or Afghanistan to stay here. At any time, the 500,000 Hawaiians can ask them to leave at any time. But the reality is, where's the infrastructure? The reality is China will move in tomorrow with its new aircraft carriers if that did take place. So there has to be a transition that takes place. Ho'opili is a symptom. It's a symptom of theft and fraud. It's a symptom of the Western lens of greed and confrontation, pick and choose. What's in it for me, and if I can, I will. That's why you have to step up. That's why you have to get educated, and that's why you have to register to vote under the system. We are all captive. We're all in the same boat. We're all moving in the same journey. But let's Eala wake up, and let's learn, and let's bring some of our mana'o and ike to these discussions, because I'll let you know, it all matters. Everything matters. Never say it doesn't matter.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Michael. And I think this is the time then to let all of you out there, our people of Hawaiianae, know you hold the power in your hands. You hold that power, and I don't think you've realized that for many, many years. But as Michael has been trying to emphasize that today, you do hold the power, so take advantage of it, use it, and don't toss it aside. It's too important. If we want to save Hawaii, like your tutu lady and your tutu man and all of our kupuna have worked so hard to keep Hawaii the way it is and not turn it into another big mainland city, then let's all stand up together and let's be maka'ala. All right.
And the question I ask for the viewers is, what kind of na kupuna do you want to be for your grandchildren? Even those people who are young right now in their 30s and 20s, think of it. 40 years from now, what Hawaii is going to look like with this drill, baby, drill, Dick Cheney mentality of destroying our cultural landscape and natural cultural resources of the public trust. What is going to be in your personal box that you will pass on to the next generation? Right. Will there be limu on the beach? Will there be any Hawaiian birds left? Will there be any vili-vilis? Will there be any hauki-uki or opihi? Or is that going to be something you heard in the past? What about learning about your culture? One of the biggest tragedies is Hawaiians don't even know their history. So remember, ignorance means to actively ignore something that exists, whether it's your culture, your cultural practice, your language, or your value sets.
That's right. That's right. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really want to thank Michael Kumukauohali for being our guest today and for sharing his mana'o and his wisdom and his knowledge with all of us. And to you at home, thank you for joining us on Waianae Now, brought to you by the concerned elders of Waianae, our kupuna of Waianae. And I'd like to leave these words with you. Be maka'ala, be alert, stand up for the truth, and hold onto the values you were taught growing up in our Hawaiianae. I'm Lori Nordlum. Thank you, and until next time, aloha and a hui ho.